So welcome back to the second half of our unboxing. This is the actual unboxing portion of the whole deal. And obviously Ian's going to help us with that, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Does that sound good for you guys?
No.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Would you like to go ahead and start us off with our first hero? And we're going to go ahead and start with the hero this time. We don't normally, but you'll probably see why in a few seconds, why it makes sense to really start with the heroes and how they make sense with the whole player card set.
So our first hero is a tactics hero.
Yeah.
And it is Eomer. And he's 10 starting cost with 1 quest, 3 attack, and 2 defense, and he has 4 hit points. And he's Rohan, Noble, and Warrior. So he has response after a character leaves play. Eomer gets +2 attack until the end of the round, limit once per round. So that's our first hero.
Right.
What do you guys think?
Amazing.
Yeah, right. He's
pretty amazing.
I love him. He's so fantastic. I think obviously he works well with a lot of the stuff that came out in the last cycle, where you can kind of they give you a lot of incentive for trashing them, like the Squire, the Citadel, for example. But in addition to that, like I think he can end up working well with a lot of the different Rohan cards that have come out. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, the thing I like about him is you don't really need a weapon to boost them up. You can add it on if you want, but just 5 attack is pretty beefy on its own.
Yeah.
And it's nice because sometimes he'll be able to take out an enemy all on his own, and then you don't have to worry about having a bunch of other characters available.
For sure.
Yeah, that's cool. Awesome. So, Ian, I know you have the next hero. And I know you've been pretty stoked about him, so why don't we go ahead and throw him out there?
Sure. So our next hero is Grima. He's from the Lore Sphere. He has a starting threat of 9, 2 willpower, 1 attack, 2 defense, and 3 hit points. He has the Rohan and Isengard trait. And his interesting ability is an action to lower the cost of the next card you play from your hand this round by 1. That card gains Doomed 1, limit once per round. Hello there. So, just as is true to form, he kind of helps you but hurts you at the same time. Right?
Yeah. Probably not a lot of... I mean, there have been obviously huge spoilers on Grima being one of the heroes so far, which is pretty insane in general. I mean, I think it's a really cool thing that they ended up that they're delving into kind of this... past of Isengard itself, but then Grima also I think is really cool. But then his ability is really interesting. How do you take it so far?
My very first impression upon looking at it was just thinking about how this could work really well in solo, because you can get cards for free and you have to raise your threat. That's fine. When you get to multiplayer, it becomes a little bit more tricky because all of a sudden you're having to convince others to accept raising their threat.
Right.
Because just as a reminder, the Doom keyword raises everyone's threat, not just yours.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so the tactics guy who showed up with 30 threat to start is super ticked.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so next up we have our dear friend, a mind of metal and wheels himself, Saruman. And Saruman was one of the first guys spoiled. He is a 3 cost, 3 willpower, 5 attack, 4 defense, 4 hit points. He is Istari and Isengard traded, and then he is also Doomed 3. At the end of the round, discard Saruman from play. And then after Saruman enters play, choose a non-unique enemy or location in the staging area. While Saruman is in play, the chosen enemy or location is considered to be out of play. Yeah.
Well, first off, I think it's really awesome having Saruman as a player card.
Yeah, for sure.
Just having him on our side, kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Kind of. Yeah. It's one step closer to my fabled, probably unworkable White Council deck, which will be probably terrible, but also awesome in the construction of it. But yeah, it's really cool to have Saruman as a character. What do you guys think about Saruman as a card?
How do we actually play with it?
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think about his play?
I feel like it's tricky, but that is because I just tend to be a more straightforward player, I think. And so I'm like, I don't know, what do I do with this? Like, I can see like great benefit in it. Like, obviously, if you're, super close to completing a quest or something, and you need to just have that like extra boost of quest points. But also, I feel like our threat like goes up like crazy all the time, and so like Doom 3, like, ow. That's how I feel.
Mm-hmm. I'm back and forth on Saruman, and I do really like the 5 attack strength, which is nice. That could be but just by itself, that might be worth it. Like if you combine them with, say, a pumped up Eomer, then that's 10 attack strength right now. That's huge.
Good point.
Being able to take something out, say in the like say a hill troll's about to come at you and you're not ready, you could just flip them out of play and not have to worry about it. Yeah. So I do like that. But I do like the theme of this card that it comes back. He'll help you, but he's not really helping you long term, like Gandalf will, right? And he's just a temporary measure, but he
for sure
adds on that threat.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel similarly, and I even think the Doomed really makes him tricky because unlike you can kind of sneak attack Gandalf, or you can kind of do some of these other things, but you still have to do that in this case, and it's like, So, I agree, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So next we have a ally. It's the Orthanc Guard, who is a leadership ally, and he is 2 cost, 1 quest, 0 attack, 2 defense, and 2 hit points, and he's Isengard trait. And his response is, after you raise your threat from the Doom keyword, ready Orthanc Guard.
Right.
So obviously we have a lot of things dooming us in Isengard.
Right.
And so now we have an additional benefit to shortening up our endgame.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. For making it a nice quick game. I really like, obviously I think he works well in the context of kind of Grima. I think, the ability to kind of re-ready him is really cool. I also think the 2 defense is nothing to sneeze at. So, and he has one willpower, so, it's nice to be able to have a little bit of stuff. And theoretically, if you're playing a Doomed card that round, you could quest him and defense, that turn. But obviously, all the stuff we've said so far about Doomed makes him tricky.
I think I was pretty underwhelmed with the card at first, just looking at like 2 defense, 2 hit points. He's gonna get like swiped by a 4 attack enemy and just explode and be gone. But when I was looking at the rest of the leadership, just as a little research, he's the only leadership ally with 2 defense, except for Faramir and Denethor. I think those are the only 2. So, and if you have like Arwen, the ally, in play, and she raises defense up to 3, that's pretty nice for only 2 resources.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next one.
All right, so our next card is an ally from the Lore Sphere. This is the Isengard Messenger, and he is a 2-cost ally with 1 willpower, no attack at all, 1 defense, 2 hit points. He has the Isengard trait as well, and his response is, after you raise your threat from the Doomed keyword, Isengard Messenger gets +1 willpower into the end of the round. Limit twice per round.
What do you guys think? I think he's good. Obviously the ability to have potentially 2 willpower is good, but you can only really end up using it once. I don't know. What do you think?
I think I like the 2 cost. I like cheap allies. Get them out quickly. For sure. And the willpower. Surprisingly, I don't know how many times people realize this, but lore doesn't actually have a lot of willpower in it. It seems like it should be more questy, but really the heroes have some nice willpower, but the allies don't. So I do like that you get some willpower with this guy
Yeah.
for cheap.
Yeah, I was wondering because I noticed you posted something about it the other day, and so I was interested in hearing your thoughts on it in particular.
Yeah, I mean, and if you say you're using Grima, you can trigger them whenever you want. Once per turn, you get them up to 2. So you can have a 2-cost, 2 willpower ally. That's nice. You dump Saruman onto the table. And you're a threat this guy high, but you got a 3 willpower ally. I don't know. Yeah, of course you're probably not going to throw him into a deck if you're not using Doom cards. But if you are, then I would use them.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. So next up we have the Westfold Outrider, and that is 2 cost, 0 willpower, 2 attack, 1 defense, 2 hit points. It is Rohan traded, Scout traded, and then as an action, you can discard the Westfold Outrider to engage an enemy, not engage with you. Engage the chosen enemy. So great. So obviously I'll show my cards on this one. I love the Westfold Outrider. I think he is awesome because I think he works with a lot of the different Rohan. Well, he works obviously well with some of the different Rohan effects and kind of could work well in a Spirit deck, which kind of so far that's been the full Rohan thing. But then in addition to that, like the ability to just like grab somebody from basically anywhere, the staging area or, you know, off hanging out with one of your friends or over in La La Land or wherever he happens to be, like be able to pull them in and be able to attack, as well as be able to kind of activate Eomer's ability, I think is all really fantastic stuff. So yeah, Westfold Outrider is really, really cool.
Yeah. I feel like you end up kind of saving me a lot of times because I don't have as as attacky or defendy. I usually quest a lot, so I think it's really valuable for you to have it in your deck.
Yeah, fair.
This is one of my favorite cards in the whole set, and just that 2 cost for 2 attack is so great.
Yeah.
And I know people sometimes look at it and say, oh, you have to discard him, but you don't have to use it right away. In the meantime, he's helping you kill things, and then when you need to use him, trigger him at the right moment.
Yeah.
If you had like Imrahil, Horn of Gondor, Eomer in play, that's 3 things you can trigger all at once.
Yep.
And you can use them during questing to pull something out and help with your questing by removing that threat. So such a versatile card. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So the next card is the Westfold Horse Breeder.
Yes.
Who is a spirit ally. She's 1 cost, 1 willpower, no attack, no defense, and 1 hit point. So she's Rohan traded, and it says response after Westfold Horse Breeder enters play, search the top 10 cards of your deck for a mount attachment and add it to your hand. Shuffle your deck. She's very pretty. She looks very nice.
Right. So obviously you reminded me of the third, but there are 3 mount traded things so far. There is one which we'll be talking about in just a sec. There is the Steed of the Mark, and then Asphalloth, which I didn't realize was mount traded. So I think she's cool because she's 1 willpower for 1 cost, and she's Rohan traded, so maybe she could, come back after what's his name leaves play, Aemond. In general, I think she's okay. I think she's probably going to end up being really great at some point. They'll probably really expand the mount trait, but what do you guys think?
Yeah, I love that she's only 1 cost allies are great because you can usually play them almost always, and she has 1 willpower, so she'll help out a little bit. And like you said, I think she's good now, especially if you're playing Glorfindel Asphalloth. You might as well include her to get that sooner. Cool. But I think she'll get even better in the future. And if nothing else, you have a 1 cost ally that you can chump block with. Throw her in front of that troll when you need to.
Poor horse breeder.
Poor horse breeder.
She's so nice.
Speaking of mounts.
So this is a tactics ally. This is the Rohan Warhorse for 1 cost, and it is a mount attachment. You attach it to a tactics or Rohan hero. It's restricted, Response: after attached hero participates in an attack that destroys an enemy, exhaust Rohan Warhorse to ready attached hero.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. Just kidding.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. I mean, I've been using it a lot with Eomer, and I think it basically makes him a tank. I mean, like a tank of tanks. Like, he's so great. But then on top of that, also just to have, yeah, I mean, the fact that he can work with any tactics hero, I think is really fantastic. So, yeah.
Yeah, I said earlier that the Outrider is one of my favorites, but this is my pick for the best card in the expansion. I love this attachment.
Yeah, really fun.
Yeah, that's fair. Awesome. Okay, so next is the Silver Lamp. 2 cost, attached to a spirit hero while the attached hero is ready, or shadow cards dealt to enemies engaged with you are dealt face up. Shadow card effects are resolved when resolving enemy attacks. So that's like the best ever. It's like built-in scrying. It lets you see all the shadow cards that are coming at you. It's basically the best ever, right?
I mean, I think in theory it can be really great. But I've been playing with it, and I just end up having it sitting in my hand because other things are more valuable for me for those 2 resources. Especially because it doesn't get rid of a shadow effect. It just lets you prepare for it, which is a good thing and valuable, but maybe something else is going to be more helpful in that instance.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, when this card was first spoiled, I was all about it. Like, this is going to be the card of the expansion. But actually playing with it, I've had the same experience as you had, where I'm staring at this, and I'm staring at Arwen for 2 cost, and Unexpected Courage for 2 cost, and I'm like, oh, I'll play Silver Lamp next turn, and then it's the end of the game. So that's, it's great knowing shadow effects, because that's the unpredictable part of the game that can really ruin your plans. But the fact that it's in spirit, you have to attach it to a spirit hero, and that's usually going to be your questing people. I mean, you can include it in a combat deck that has a spirit hero, but it's a little tricky to get working.
Yeah. All right, so next we have a neutral attachment, so everyone can play with this guy. And it's one resource cost. It's the Keys of Orthanc. So it's an item, and you attach to a hero. Response: after you raise your threat from the doomed keyword, exhaust Keys of Orthanc to add 1 resource to attached hero's resource pool. Go.
I mean, if you're gonna hose yourself with doomed, you might as well get paid to do it, right? I mean, it's cool. I think obviously works great with Grima. I think it's going to be a really fun card for some of the other ones. I think Grima really is where it makes sense the most, just because I don't know that there's like a massive cohesive thing for a lot of it. But I think generally that is where I see it being most valuable is with Grima.
Yeah, for me the best thing about it is that it's neutral. Like, if you're playing leadership, for example, you can just include Steward of Gondor, call it a day, you're done as far as resources go.
Yeah.
But if you're playing something like lore or spirit, you don't have a lot of options, and so this, because it's neutral, gives you options. But then again, you really have to play, like you said, with Grima to make it work. Maybe as we see more Doom cards come out, it'll be more useful.
Yeah, that's fair.
Great.
The next one, is that me? Who's that? Oh, I'm sorry.
So our next card is a leadership event, Legacy of Numenor, and it's 0 cost. But there is another cost to it, which is Doomed 4. Action. Add 1 resource to each hero's resource pool.
So Doomed 4, huh? What do you think? Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say Doomed 4 that's a lot. That's a lot of Doom to experience in one card.
Yeah.
But I think that, especially if you're playing, and talking, you brought up if you're playing multiplayer, or maybe you did, I don't remember. I mean, that's a lot of resources you're ending up getting.
Yeah.
So if you can use it very strategically,
Yeah.
when the doomed 4 isn't going to like be the last nail in your coffin, then it can be super valuable. But you just got to really figure out when and where and how are you going to play that. Yeah, because 4 doomed is just, it's rough.
Yeah, I think for me the value in this card is that a lot of times in a game your success depends on how quickly you can get your deck running. And so that's one of the roles is for this card, I think, is you try to get it in your opening hand and you play it right away, and all of a sudden you've doubled everyone's resources. That means you're like a turn ahead and you can just drop things. On the other hand, that Doom 4 is real. It's real.
It's for real.
If you start at 30 and all of a sudden you're at 34 threat or 35, most enemies will be coming at you right away.
That's a good point.
You got to plan for it. You can't just throw this in your deck.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so speaking of doomed cards, next one we have is Deep Knowledge, which is Doom 2. Each player draws 2 cards. Yeah. I think I like it. Doom 2 is not the worst thing ever. You can kind of, I think you can really gauge everybody and go, hey, so everybody want to, and I think it ends up being not too bad. No pun intended. I think it ends up being not too bad as far as that goes. What do you guys think? Especially for card draw. I mean, card draw is pretty brutal as it is. So card draw for everybody, I think, is great.
Yeah, I mean, Doom 2, just because it's like half of what Legacy of Numenor was, I think I'll end up playing this a lot more. And like you said, card draw is so important. And there's not a lot of cards in multiplayer that lets just everyone draw a card.
Right.
So I think that's what's really valuable about this one.
Yeah.
And it's 0. I mean, the cost is in the Doom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next, we have the Wizard's Voice, which is a spell trait, and it's 0 cost. However, it is doomed 3. So action, each player chooses 1 enemy engaged with him until the end of the phase. Each chosen enemy cannot attack the player that chose it. So what do you guys think?
Well, just looking at the art, it's not one of, not one of Saruman's better days. But
No. Poor Saruman. This was the day he went really bad. Like this was the day he woke up in the mirror and was like, "I'm done. I can't do this anymore."
The White Wizard.
I think it's it's very versatile in the fact that you can play it in solo and it becomes similar to Feint in that sense. But I also think that in multiplayer it's so huge. Everybody has to take the cost of the doomed, but also everybody gets to kind of take a cheap shot at an enemy. So I think that's really great. It's tough because it's 3. I mean, we just can't get around that. It's 3, so that's really tough. But also, it's really cool. So I don't know.
Yeah, I almost wish it wasn't tactics. Like, I know that's kind of the sphere for canceling attacks, but I think it would be even more valuable, say you have it in leadership or something like that, where they don't have a feint. Then that would give them an option. But I do like that it has the spell trait. That's something we haven't seen before, I think. So I'm hoping we'll see more spells in the future.
Yeah.
Fun.
And I will say every time we get a new trait that's kind of a cool one, like spell, I kind of get excited because I'm like, oh, what else is going to be? Yeah, it's nerdy.
All right. Speaking of spells.
Okay, so our next card is an event from the Spirit Sphere. It's 0 cost, and it's the Power of Orthanc. It has doomed 2. Action, each player may choose and discard a condition attachment from play.
Well, I will say right off the bat, I think I love this a lot. Like, because I think, to the best of my knowledge, the only card in the game right now which can get rid of condition attachments is the Miner of the Iron Hills. He's the only guy, so he's like, it's like this very obscure guy who has it. And Elrond is coming out, and he's going to have that ability too, I believe. But I think the ability to get rid of condition attachments is something the game has lacked so far. So when you get one on you, it just kind of feels like it's there forever. So I love this because I think the ability to ditch a condition is really cool. I will say that it's going to obviously depend on which quest you're doing, I think, more. Because I don't think this is going to go in every deck.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tool for a specific problem, you know.
Yeah.
It's like a wrench. You're not going to take it out to play with for fun, right? It's
Right.
for a specific purpose.
Yeah.
That, and I like that it's Spirit Sphere, so you don't, if you're not playing lore, you don't have to splash in lore just to play that minor. You can have this available to get rid of conditions.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Good.
Okay. And we have the return of our dear friend Saruman again. We have the Seeing Stone. It's neutral, doomed 1, and as an action, search your deck for a card with the doomed keyword and add it to your hand. Shuffle your deck. What do you guys think?
Feels so doomy. Which is a specific. I mean, it's a technical term, doomy.
It's doomy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
No, but I mean, you have some really powerful Doom cards, so there's that. But also, you're like dooming on top of Doom. So I think it's just hard. It's another one of those that feels to me hard to play, and you have to have a very specific strategy set to do it.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I like that it's neutral, and I like that it's only doomed 1, and I like that's the only cost. So I will say to all of those things, I think it's interesting. Like if you just desperately need Saruman now, like you need quest or you need attack, or you need to kind of neutralize something. I think in theory it's good. I kind of wish you could pair it with Grima and just kind of then search for anything. But I don't think that quite works that way. So I do think it's theoretically really interesting. I don't know how it'll be in practice immediately.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the good thing is it can almost act as like extra copies of one of those Doom cards. You like, say if you want to do the Legacy of Numenor thing, like get it in your opening hand. Well, you can include this, and if you draw this instead, then you still get what you want. But I think what you brought up is a great point as far as like that fine line of just how much doomed are you going to include.
Yeah.
And with this card in particular, it's like how many cards are you going to include to make that whole Doom thing happen versus including cards that are just doing those basic things that you need to do, like fight, quest. Yeah, so it's a fine balance, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
So there we have it.
And there we are. Those were the cards, obviously. Overall, what do you think about Voice of Isengard? Open for both of you. What do you...
I'll give you the floor.
Okay. I'm really enjoying it so far, both the player cards and the scenarios. As far as the player cards go, it's really hard to judge when you just have that first Deluxe Expansion, and I know when I got the Heirs of Numenor cards, for example, I was like, oh, these are nice, you know, maybe they'll do something.
Yeah.
But then at the end of the cycle, now I'm using some of those cards so much, so I imagine that's probably how it'll be here. We got some solid cards that'll be really useful, and some that'll get better. As far as the quest and Voice of Isengard, they're very creative, and some of the mechanics they've been coming up with to keep it fresh, and I've really enjoyed that part.
Yeah,
Good.
for sure.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fun and interesting new things that this expansion brings out for sure. I think the doomed concept is really interesting. I think it makes it really, you have some really more important decisions you're making when you're playing cards, and I think that's fun. So I think it adds a lot of fun things to the game. I think it's a really fun expansion.
Yeah, I would say it has been, for me, just again, with just looking at what we get out of the gates, I've been really excited about it. I think I think the player cards themselves have been really fun, and I am itching to really try and get Grima to the table. I think Grima is one of the most intriguing heroes that I've seen for a while. I've had a chance to play Eomer, and I really like him as well. So I think in terms of what you get right out of the gate, I think it's been really fun to play with the things that we get. So yeah, I think in general I've been really happy with it, and I'm excited to see some of those things like mounts and maybe some of the other Rohan stuff, as well as some other things, maybe see where they go with some of that as well.
For sure.
Really exciting to have a new cycle, really excited to kick it off with this particular box. So
yeah.
So that is what we have.
Those are all of the cards.
That was lots of things, lots of stuff and thoughts and things.
And what have yous?
There were a few what have yous. Ian, again, thank you so much for being here. We have really appreciated getting to know you a little bit better, as well as it's just been fun being able to kind of hang out and get your thoughts on these different things.
Yeah.
Definitely, I always love talking about the game. I mean, obviously. So great to have a chance to do this.
Yeah. Awesome. All right.
Well, you guys keep playing awesome games.
See you guys next time.
Bye.